Thank you, Mike. And as you heard Mike say, all 40 women will be on the course. Starting order decided by a qualifying lap that was done yesterday. We're going to go from the slowest times to the fastest. So Stephanie Chung was the slowest in the qualifying time, so she will start in the back of the pack. The fastest times were 1 minute 46.74 seconds, and that belongs to Laura Horvath, who is making her very first appearance at the CrossFit Games. She will start in the lead. The question is now, can she stay there? And Laura Horvath, the first woman from Hungary to represent her country at the CrossFit Games, and she comes in with some expectations.
She is my rookie to watch this year, taking second place in the European regional between Annie Thorsdottir and Sarah Sigmundsdottir. When you are used to competing amongst those ladies at regional competition, she is coming in with such an edge over the other rookies.
Right next to her, and talk about pressure, the former two-time champion, bottom of your screen in the pink top, that's Katrin Davidsdottir, who finished 5th at the 2017 Reebok CrossFit Games. She is on a mission to reclaim that crown here this year.
She definitely is, and she has made it known to everyone she was not happy with that finish last year. She trained the entire year this year, more volume, harder than ever, because her only goal was to win the CrossFit Games again.
This is a loaded women's field, and we'll get into this as the event plays out, but there is very little room for error for the women who want to find themselves on the podium here in Madison.
Every event matters, including this one, where there's a high risk, high reward for going faster on this piece of equipment that they're not so familiar with.
We will have a rolling start.
Ladies and gentlemen, this will be a rolling
And then once the athletes hit the official starting line, that is when the race will begin. Dave Castro, the director of the CrossFit Games, out front in that bright yellow bike, leading the athletes to the starting line. 5 rows of 8 athletes. And it's Laura Horvath who had the top qualifying time, and now the athletes begin to pick up speed as we get set to kick off event number 1, the Criterium Race, the opening event of the 2018 Reebok CrossFit Games in Madison, Wisconsin. Dave Castro has moved off the course, and now the race will begin. 10 laps around this 1,200-meter course. And Laura Horvath, who is on the inside, she is out front. She's in the blue pants, the rookie from Hungary. Cassie Lance McWhorter, the blonde-headed woman, is right behind her, and then Katrin Davidsdottir in third.
Horvath's time trial was good enough for a 16th place on the men's side, so very impressive time. All eyes are on her. However, when you're out in the front, that's good news for the women behind you if they can stay close enough. I don't know if we'll see it or who will be the first one to do it, but drafting is a big thing in the sport of cycling, and if you can do it right, you can save a lot of energy over the course of this 10-lap race.
You were out on the course yesterday. You got to watch these women go through their qualifying laps. What do you think the keys of this event are?
Well, you need to stay in control. Absolutely. Many of these women, 99% of them, are not comfortable on these bikes. They're not used to the equipment, the clips. Their shoes are clipped in. So they need to just stay in control and avoid crashes, avoid collisions. They also have to maintain their momentum. It's a race. Around the corners, they're going to need to get that speed back up after they come around the corners quickly. So maintain all the momentum you can. It's going to be efficient. And then know your surroundings, the field of play. We heard Mike Arsenault talk about just the ground, but also the other athletes around you. Are they coming up on your right or left? And what kind of riders are they? Are they more spasmodic? Are they in control? Who are you racing against?
Laura Horvath leads the way through the first lap. Her time around that first lap, 1:29.44 seconds. But remember, that was on a shorter course than it was on the qualifying lap because the start line was moved up because of the rolling start. Now the athletes will settle in to a more normal pace. Laura Horvath starting to get a train of athletes behind her. The athletes, before they started the race, they had a 2-lap warm-up, and we already had 1 crash on the warm-up, and that was Bethany Shadburn, who's on the left of your screen, just gets out of control and hits the deck. Shadburn did very well last year in the cyclocross event, but she was okay, and she is back up, and she will be able to continue on in this event.
That just shows me that even someone as comfortable on the bike as Shadburn, for her to fall, it means it can happen to anybody out here. The course is not perfect, and so when they start to move, if they start to get outside or inside, any slight movements, the bike isn't as stable for that.
Laura Horvath continuing to lead with Katrin Davidsdottir, the former two-time champion, right on her back wheel. 10 total laps as they put the finishing touches on lap number 2. Annie Thorisdottir in the blue pants, white top, sunglasses, white sunglasses on the middle of your screen. She's right behind Tia Toomey. So many of the women that we expect to contend for not only a podium spot, but also the title of fittest on earth are moving towards the front of the pack here.
Here's where it can get a little hairy, though. Look, Tia Toomey is moving over, but there's not really a lot of room to go. So this is where there could be a little accident, a little issue if you're uncomfortable with people coming up on your side. If you freak out and you panic and you swivel too far right or left, it could cause a chain reaction.
And this is an event, we were talking about this earlier, where what someone else does directly impacts how you perform.
There are many events in the CrossFit Games where you stay in your lane, and what other people do you can use as motivation, momentum, but they don't directly affect your outcome for what you're going to do in your game plan. Here, that's completely different. What they do matters for your event, your race. You have to be more aware, and you have to be careful. You have to adapt. You can't just run your race and put your head down.
After 2 laps, it's Laura Horvath in the lead. Katrin Davidsdottir behind her, Kristen Holte, Tia Toomey, and Tanil Berline, your top 5.
I expected after a few laps the ladies to separate a little bit more. We're starting to see that. People are starting to jockey for positions, and we're starting to see some separation from the pack. That's good because, remember, those time trials, it was a 1 lap by themselves. It's a wide course. I walked it yesterday with former Games athlete Becky Konzelman, and she said this is a wide race for a crit race, a wide course. It's good to see that separation for some safety.
That was Stephanie Chung, who came in with a bottom qualifying time, and she just was off of her bike, had a crash on lap 3 here, so she will be even further towards the back as she tries to get back on her bike and back into the pack here. One last look at what happened to Stephanie Chung, who also had a wreck at the end of her qualifying lap.
And it looks like as she comes down, her bike is a little too far to the side.
Oh.
She hits a position there, and that didn't look good.
That was a hard wreck for Stephanie Chung. That looks like she may have hit a groove there. Let's send it down to Mike Arsenault, who's on the course.
Thanks, guys. I mentioned the tires, I mentioned the clips. We also have to talk about the gears, because whoever can shift gears quickly and efficiently will have an advantage here on this event. So as you approach an incline or a straightaway, you want the hardest gear possible, because that's when you can create the most power. And as you go into downhill, you want to shift downwards on your gear shift so that you can continue to press as hard as you can on the pedals throughout the entirety of the race.
Thank you, Mike. 3 laps are down, and it is still Laura Horvath who continues to lead. Katrin Davidsdottir, Cassie Lance McWhorter, Tia Toomey, Kristen Holte, and Annie Thorisdottir. So a lot of contenders up there in the front.
That first pack right there took the corner very well. They were prepped yesterday. They were talked through the course of how to approach each of these corners. You need to get wide and outside before you get to the corner so you can make a nice straight line and then hug the inside tight. It's going to be the way to keep your momentum the most, and these top 3-4 women really did that well.
Laura Horvath is out front. That is Stephanie Chung at the bottom of your screen, who is in danger of getting lapped by the leaders. But Laura Horvath in front, but she is also doing the most work right now.
She is right behind her. These women are drafting, especially Katrin Davidsdottir right behind her. And studies have shown, given weight, the angle of how the lean on the bike and other factors, around 30% of energy saved if you can draft properly behind that. So over the course of the time, over 10 laps, over any laps, you need to catch a little break. You just catch a little draft behind. The women behind are the ones that are getting the break, but Horvath is the one doing all the work.
We are on the 4th of 10 laps in the opening event of the 2018 Reebok CrossFit Games. 4 total events here on Wednesday, the most events we have ever had on a Wednesday of competition. Stephanie Chung is in front of the pack, but again, she is technically in the back because of that wreck. Laura Horvath is your leader. Katrin Davidsdottir in the all pink and the sunglasses is right behind her. Tia Toomey, number 17. E. Shirk, number 41 in the pink top. She's in that lead pack. Kristen Holta is in third. We talked about it at the top of the event, but there is not a lot of room for error, especially in the women's competition in any event. Tia Toomey, who won the CrossFit Games last year, her lowest finish was 14th. You cannot punt one into the stands in the women's competition if you want to win.
And when we look at the women that we were expecting to the top 5, second last year, I think of Cara Saunders. She did not do as well in last year's bicycle event. She was the bottom half, and so for her, hopefully she did her homework. We don't see her here at the top of the pack right now, and she's the one I'm concerned with for getting those points stripped away. The field is stronger this year, even greater competition, and she needs every single point she can.
Lap 5, Laura Horvath, Katrin Davidsdottir, Kristen Holta, Tia Toomey, and Cassidy Lance McWhorter are your top 5. It's a long race, 10 laps around a 1,200 meter circuit. And again, we talked about the keys of this event, but control, so important here.
And so far, just under halfway into the event, we are seeing a lot of the athletes being conservative. I feel like they're staying very conservative, not racing it yet. It is a 0.75 mile course. That's a long enough time that you have the final lap, the last 2 laps, that they're really going to open it up, but still staying in really nice control, getting a feel for these laps. They are so adaptable. These are the fittest women on earth. You give them just a little bit of time and they learn a lot. You give them a little more time, they get even better. They were yesterday on this course from the first lap to the last lap, worlds different when they get their gearing, get their equipment, and they're showing that here as well.
Cassidy Lance McWhorter has moved into the lead. Katrin Davidsdottir has slotted right behind her, and now Laura Horvath is in third. So Lance McWhorter taking her turn at the front of the pack here on lap 5.
Here's Horvath's chance to catch her wind, catch her breath if she can just stay behind Cassidy Lance McWhorter and Katrin Davidsdottir.
5th of 10 laps. Once they cross the finish line here, we will be at the halfway point. Cassidy Lance McWhorter, who's had a great season so far. She won the Worldwide Open. She won the Atlantic Regional, and now she is gunning for her best ever finish at the CrossFit Games. Last year she was 12th, but in 2014 she finished 8th, and she has a good chance to improve on that here in 2018.
So far she's the only undefeated woman in this CrossFit Games season since the start of the Open, and she wants to hold that as long as possible, and this is a great event for her to possibly do that and extend that streak.
Lap number 6, your top 5, Cassidy Lance McWhorter, Katrin Davidsdottir right behind her. Laura Horvath sits in third. Alessandra Pacelli has moved into fourth, and it's Kristen Holta who is in 5th with Tia Toomey right behind her.
When you look at this event, it's a very different bicycling event and cycling event than we saw last year, but they're all physically capable athletes. They just need to adapt to the bike, adapt to the shoes, get comfortable. But when you look at just how their system is taxed and what energy system they're using, I like to think of this as like a Tabata. When they go through the straightaways, that's where they're going to push it a little harder. They're going to get their speed up, and then they kind of coast a little bit. They brake just before those turns. They get a little bit, take a little bit off the gas, and that's kind of their rest recovery, just a few seconds. So if you think of it in terms like that, where you're on an assault bike, you crank it out, and then you have a slow recovery. That's what these women essentially are doing around the 4 corners for every lap. So 40 repeats for a hard push and a little recovery. That's what this event is all about.
Cassidy Lance McWhorter still in the lead here on the 6th of 10 laps in the opening event of the 2018 Reebok CrossFit Games, the Criterium race. And we just talked about it, but you're not going to win it on event 1, but you can certainly lose it.
You can lose it if you take risks too early and you let people pass you. If you deviate from from holding your line on a corner, that could be 5-6 places. So it really just depends on who can really keep themselves ahead, who can be smart, and then know when to go.
6 laps are down. Cassidy Lance McWhorter is your leader. Tanil Burline has moved into 2nd. Laura Horvath is in 3rd. Katrin Davidsdottir and Kristen Holta rounding out the top 5. Cassidy Lance McWhorter has never won an event at the CrossFit Games. This is her 5th career appearance. Her best ever performance in an event was the overhead squat in 2014 when she tied for 3rd.
At last year's games, though, in a snatch event, she really just came to light. She had a dominating just rest of her games. She's strong when it comes to the barbell, and I feel like that lit a fire under her, and I saw that same thing at the regional competition. She just has a different confidence and has a different attack in her events and in her, just the way she competes than I saw in years past.
Let's go back down to the course where Mike Arsenault's standing by.
I mentioned earlier that utilizing high gears on straightaways and declines and low gears on the uphill portion will be the difference maker in this event, and that's what you're seeing. The women at the front are shifting quick enough where they can utilize a more powerful pedal stroke, whereas the women at the back, as they come up the hill and they have the straightaway and the decline, they're not shifting their gears and they're just pedaling rapidly on a road to nowhere. So that's why you're seeing the women at the front using a smooth, powerful stroke, and that's why they're leading so far here in event number 1.
That's a great point, because if you're comfortable with shifting, that's what you're going to do. You know how to use the equipment. But if you're not, you run the risk of being in the wrong gear, and that could be costly. So some of them know, and they're more comfortable with their own abilities and their leg strength and their power. They're just going to drive through it and grind.
We've had a change at the front of the pack as Sarah Sigmundsdottir in the all black has moved to the front of the pack. Behind her is Katrin Davidsdottir. So Sigmundsdottir, who is sitting in the bottom half of the top 10 for most of the opening part of this race, has now moved in front as we are through 7 of 10 laps. 3 laps remain, and Sarah Sigmundsdottir now turning this thing into a little bit more of a hotly contested race.
For the first time ever, I have seen Sarah Sigmundsdottir come to the CrossFit Games with a game face on, and I've loved it, and I couldn't wait to see what she did and what she brought. I love her composure, that she sat back this far into the race, watched the race unfold in front of her, see who her athletes that she's competing against, see what she needs to do. That was really smart and watched, and I'm really anxious to see if she can hold on to this now for another 2 laps.
Sigmundsdottir's in the lead, but Katrin Davidsdottir's right behind her, Tia Toomey. And now another change at the front. Trying to make out a number on the jersey. Looks like that could be Meredith Root.
Meredith Root is a rookie, and she's a name that I was looking for this event in particular, because she's the only one who has crit experience in high school. She raced crit. I was surprised to see her name not higher at the top of the time trial. I was surprised we haven't seen her yet, but maybe that was her strategy. Maybe she was as well, looking to see how this thing unfolded, to know what she needed to do for when it actually counts here at the end.
Meredith Root was a late add to the CrossFit Games field. She finished 6th in the West, but she made it in after one of the qualifying athletes from that regional was disqualified due to a failed drug test. And now here she is leading in the later stages of the opening event of the 2018 Reebok CrossFit Games. Lap 8 of 10 here in the Criterium. The first of 4 events that these athletes will do on the opening day of this competition. Meredith Root leads the way, and by this time, all the athletes have figured out what line they need to take as they head through these turns.
They figured it out. However, during the next turn, when you're looking at turns like this, if there's somebody in your way different than they were the round before, right there on your screen, if you deviate from your line, you don't hold that line, that's where you're going to lose it. You're going to affect other people. So if they go around a turn and there's more athletes there, you have to adjust and stay in your new lane as opposed to what you did the round before.
Meredith Root is your leader. Kristen Holta is in 2nd. Laura Horvath sits in 3rd. Katrin Davidsdottir is in 4th. And Tia Toomey and Cassie Lance McWhirter in 5th and 6th. And Sarah Sigmundsdottir, who led for a good portion of lap number 8, has now fallen back in the pack. She sits in 7th place with now just 2 laps remaining.
She probably pushed it a little too hard right there, or I'm wondering if she realized being out in front, it was taxing her too much and it wasn't time for her to make a move, but I'm surprised she fell that far back. Maybe she just pushed it too soon, too early.
And now Alessandra Pacelli in the blue pants has taken her turn at the front of the pack, but Catherine Davidsdottir remains in second place. That is the one thing that basically has not changed here towards the front of the pack. Catherine Davidsdottir has been doing a great job of drafting off whoever is sitting in that lead position, and she has kept herself in second place for the majority of this race. And now Sarah Sigmundsdottir on the right of your screen looking to make a move and overtake Sandra Pacelli for the lead here on lap number 9 of 10.
So far, lap number 8 has been the fastest average lap for these women at 1.59, a minute 59 seconds. And they started their first lap at 2 minutes and 4 seconds. So a lot of this, looking at the speed increasing, we expected to see that.
Catherine Davidsdottir now back in front, and she is opening up a lead as the bell sounds to signify the final lap here of the criterium race. And Catherine Davidsdottir is looking to bring home 100 points, and this is the biggest lead we have seen so far at any point of the race.
This is the push, this is the sprint.
Catherine Davidsdottir spent the entirety of the race in second place, and now she is in the lead. Now the question is, can she hold it on the final lap? Laura Horvath is trying to push her for that position, and now Laura Horvath has moved herself back into the top spot. These are your top two for the time trials as well, as Laura Horvath had the fastest qualifying time, and Catherine Davidsdottir was second.
This is where all the practice of the previous 9 rounds comes into play. You know the course, you know where you need to be, and now can you execute that with top speed?
Horvath and Davidsdottir, your top two. And Kristen Holte sits in third. Cassie Lance McWhorter around in the corner. Bethany Shadburn on the left of your screen. She's up in that lead pack as well. But the top three, Laura Horvath, Catherine Davidsdottir, and Kristen Holte, as the pace begins to pick up as we approach the final stages of the last lap.
They're pushing. It is a long course, and that's going to feel really long when you start to make that sprint early. Catherine Davidsdottir taking a wide lead and made a nice inside turn. That was a good move for her, but she's losing some momentum there.
And now the sprint to the finish as Kristen Holte moves to the outside. We have a crash in the back, but Holte has overtaken Laura Horvath, and Kristen Holte will win event number 1.
Oh, what a finish for Holte. She knew exactly when to push it and when to push and make that final sprint.
A host of athletes coming across the finish line. Holte gets the win. Horvath will finish in second. Catherine Davidsdottir takes third. Bethany Shadburn is fourth. Tia Toomey and Annie Thorisdottir. And Michelle Fumagalli wrecked on the last turn and ran across the finish line. That's going to count. You got to get yourself across the finish line by any means. The bike is the fastest way, but she just ran, and that's going to count for her. So quick thinking from Michelle Fumagalli.
For the rest of the field, she got up quickly too. That was good for them. Didn't cause any other issues for the other athletes.
More athletes finishing up. Kristen Holte, for the second straight year, takes the bike event. She won the cyclocross event in 2017 here in Madison, Wisconsin, and picks up her 5th career event win as she racks up 100 points in the criterium.
Holte's an endurance athlete. She does a lot of marathons, triathlons, so that they're in her wheelhouse. But I thought with a completely different event as last year's bike event, I didn't know and didn't expect her to do what she did right there.
Camille Blanc-Bazinet just coming across the finish line. Sarah Sigmundsdottir, meanwhile, finished 21st. So she made an early push, but it did not pay off, and she finishes towards the bottom half of the pack. So Sarah Sigmundsdottir putting herself in an early hole. Remember last year when Tia Toomey won the CrossFit Games for the first time, her lowest finish was 14th. Camille Blanc-Bazinet came off of her bike, but it was after she crossed the finish line. It looks like she's going to be okay as volunteers direct some of the other riders around her. The athletes with a cool-down lap, all of these women have finished. Bethany Shadburn on the right of your screen acknowledging the crowd. Shadburn with a 4th place finish.
Hey guys, watch out, we got a camera coming through here. Push back, please.
To improve on her 22nd place finish overall in the 2017 Reebok CrossFit Games. This is her 2nd appearance here in Madison, Wisconsin. Maddie Sturt in the center of your screen making her 3rd appearance here, and she's only 21 years old.
And I look at this event, I look at all of the events on day 1 here, Sean, and they're all single element events. They all stay within, if you're good at that, you're going to do really well. If you're not, we're going to find your weakness. It's going to be exposed because there's only one element that you're dealing with. So in these events, particularly like this, we have Holte who took the 100 points, and I look at the whole competition, and the 5 women especially, we thought that they were going to be at the top. 2 that are in danger right now are really, it's Cara Saunders and Sarah Sigmundsdottir that did not make it here at the top and get the points they needed.
Let's take a look back at that final lap, and what happened is Kristen Holte was sprinting to the front. Behind her, Michelle Fumagalli, the rookie, crashed, and instead of getting herself back on the bike, and that was a nasty tumble that she took right there, she says, to heck with this, I'm just going to run across the finish line, and that will count. So quick thinking from the rookie, Michelle Fumagalli would have wasted some seconds trying to get herself back into that bike. So made the best of her time and got herself across the finish line, as now the athletes have pulled off the course and stopped riding. As Kristen Holte, again, for the 2nd straight year, will win the bike event and lock up 100 points in the process. Laura Horvath, the rookie out of Hungary, finishes 2nd, and Katrin Davidsdottir takes 3rd place. Bethany Shadburn is there in 4th, and Tia Claire Toomey rounding out the top 5. Great result for Annie Thorisdottir. And then Jamie Green, the final athlete in the top 10. But you mentioned it earlier, the 2 athletes that are going to have some work to do now are Sarah Sigmundsdottir, who finished 21st, and Cara Saunders, who finished 22nd overall.
Early on, it was Horvath, though, that did a lot of the work. She was the one who led the pack, who we expected. She did that for about the first half of the race. Really, she stayed nice and controlled. She led the race and really led that line for a lot of the ladies to follow. She wasn't able to see what was going on behind her, but behind her there was a lot going on, especially for Chung. She fell early on, was able to get back up, but wasn't able to be fast enough. The other ladies caught up to her. Katrin Davidsdottir played this event so well by drafting nearly the entire time and just staying casually behind. Cassie Lynch-McWhorter, the 8th round, I'm sorry, she took over. She really made that push, and once she did, she was the one that everybody was trying to catch. She took the lead. Sarah Sigmundsdottir made a hard push just for a little bit and then lost that, really fell behind. So that was a big mistake we saw there from Sarah Sigmundsdottir. That was disappointing, but allowed the other women to, you can kind of see, when am I going to do this? When am I going to make my move? We saw Meredith Root make a move. Didn't know if she was going to be able to hold on to that. Her experience in cycling. But the other ladies in this field were so dominant, so strong, that Katrin Davidsdottir was able to keep herself there. No matter who was passing her, she maintained her spot and her position on the course. And she really did. She started to push as soon as she heard that bell. She made a hard push for the final lap. And then it was the sprint at the very end around that last turn. Kristen Holte just opened it up and took the 100-point win.
5th career win for Kristen Holte. Let's send it down to Mike Arsenault, who is with your event winner.
Kristen, Madison is a cycling town, and you just won the bike event for the 2nd year in a row. Now, you let Laura and Katrin do most of the work, leading the pack for the majority of that race. Why did you decide to hang back at the beginning?
Because it's much easier to draft, and you save a lot of energy, and you have to be smart. So I wanted to save most of my energy for the last 2 rounds. I knew someone would try to go fast in the end, and I was able to keep up with them until the last turn, and then I sprinted as hard as I could.
And when was the moment that you were deciding when to break for it?
Well, I saw Katrin, she was going for it, thinking, okay, this is it. I've been watching a lot of Tour de France, and if you saw the last course this year, there was a Norwegian guy winning the sprint, and I wanted to do the same.
Well, that research paid off. So this is potentially the toughest first day in CrossFit Games history. We have 3 more events. How do you see them shaking out for you as we move throughout day 1?
You know, I just take one event at a time. Now, this was super fun. It's done. On to the next one.
Thank you. We'll see you in event 2.